right. I am happy today to be speaking with Judd Armstrong, a native of Australia, who is perhaps best known for starting a wireless revolution in 2006 when he founded and bootstrapped Jaybird, which became the third premium headphone brand in the U.S. alongside Beats and Bose. And he sold the company to Logitech in 2016 for an eye-popping $95 million US. But life was not always rosy. And in fact, early on, Judd left Australia to pursue a woman who would ultimately become his wife, thankfully. But I recall seeing a video where he sold his possessions, including this incredibly boss car that he had at the time. And he started a retail job making $10 an hour, which didn't help pay off thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars of debt that he had at the time, which we can all relate to at one point. But when he sold Jaybird, he could finally relax a little bit, get into some farming in Australia, which I can't wait to ask about. And in the meantime, he's also developed some very cool ventures that we're going to talk about in today's show, including a lifestyle-friendly method of trading Bitcoin and Ethereum, which is crazy. I was trying to explain this to my wife, and she was like, that sounds too good to be true. So we're going to find out about that. In fact, this method is like almost foolproof, and you can grow your money by 100x within a couple of years. So he's made this available for the first time in his Unlisted app, which is a very cool name, and is for first-timers as well as experienced traders. He's also launching a new app this summer, I guess in a matter of weeks, called Jump, which was born from his intense study of the power of positive thought and how our subconscious plays into our relationships with health, happiness, and wealth. All right, Judd, my man, welcome to the Go for Launch podcast.
Thank you, Brandon. We have so much to talk about, as you just ran through. There's heaps to talk about today.
Oh my gosh, we sure do. Well, first of all, tell me where you are in the world today.
I'm in Utah at the moment. We came over to visit some family, and then COVID-19 hit. And if you know anything about international flights to Australia right now, they are shut down.
Oh yeah,
you can't even travel from state to state. Maybe they're opening that up now, but Australia really just crushed the virus, and they're doing quite well down there because of the kinds of things they're doing. So we're here in Utah. We're quite happy to be here at the moment, and we've got a lot of family and friends here.
Outstanding. Now, do you live in Australia full time? Typically?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we do. That's right.
Excellent. Mm-hmm. Well, my wife had a very great work vacation, I would call it, last year over there. Had a blast.
Cool.
Loved the country, and we want to go back, but it's like you say, you can't get anywhere right now. But so let me ask you, Judd, to go back in time a little bit. Before you started Jaybird, what was life like for you professionally and personally back in the early days before marriage and stuff like that?
Oh yeah. Well, when I was in high school, my dad asked me, "Hey, what do you want to do when you get older, mate?" And I said to him, "Well, I like being outdoors. I don't like being under fluorescent lights and at a desk. So I want to be a landscaper." And that's kind of a creative kind of outlet too. And he's like, "Well, that's good, but you're not going to be financially free. Just know that going in, you're going to just having to be paying bills and getting by." I'm like, "Well, that's a good point. All right, I'll do graphic design because there's a creativity again."
That's real lucrative.
Yeah, right. So that's what he said, and then I thought, oh well, Indonesia is the closest country to Australia, and so I was studying Indonesian language because there was a big focus on business with Indonesia in the future for Australia. So I said to him, "I'm going to be an Indonesian translator. I'm going to go to university, study Indonesian, and I'll do translation." He's like, "Fair enough, all right." And so I went there and I found marketing because I had to do an international business degree. And marketing blew my mind. I love the idea of being able to communicate to people the benefits that something might have in their life and to lift their life from that. And that kind of lit me up a bit. So then I actually went and got out. Instead of getting a marketing job, I started selling washing machines as my first job.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great.
Washing machines, man. And, that was a fun experience. And then I actually met Miriam, my wife. And she lit me up, and I'm like, I'm going to have to chase her back to America because she was visiting Australia at the time. And so I sold my old muscle car, a 1971 Holden Monaro, which is like the Chevy SS here in the States.
Sure, muscle car.
I sold that, got a wedding ring, right? That's all I had, that and some clothes. And so I got over here, put the wedding ring on her finger. She now had the Monaro on her hand. And all I had was some clothes. And so I went and got a $10 an hour retail job. And we were living in a pretty rough area of town, had to really hustle. And I started my own little business, very small one, and just running it out of our house. Our first employee, she was wondering if we were running an illegal operation because she was working in our house.
Nice.
And then we grew and got bigger, and we ended up with about 30 to 50 employees at a time. And then I sold it because it was just a big headache. It was like
that the company 0P?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Yep. It was all about going electronic medical records. That was at the bleeding edge when we were still using dial-up to send PDF medical records to people.
Yeah. That's not as sexy as earphones.
No, not at all. That's right. And I sold that, and I just made a little bit of pocket money out of it to decide what I could maybe do properly that I really enjoy. And one of the things that if you're wondering, how you can find that thing that you're really chasing after in your life, that purpose and that calling on your life, that passion, that dream, there's some things that you can use to identify what those are. And first of all, if you're wondering what your gifts are, if you're wondering what your purposes are, look at what you really geek out about, like what lights you up that might be completely uninteresting to other people. There's a hint, and that could be one of the things. But the other thing is a lot of people fail to excavate, and they fail to explore life, and they find one thing that they like, or they find a little comfort zone, and they think that that's all there is. But we are still discovering who we are. There is so much about ourselves that we haven't even discovered yet. There's so much potential in us. So you have to excavate, you have to explore and expand and create whole new experiences all the time. And that's what farm was all about. We'll get back to the farm in a minute. But so I love music and sports. Figured that, hey, if I could get some like headphones that were wireless, because I'd go back to my desk here, I'd have this wireless keyboard and mouse. Even in 2005, but I'd be out running with this silly iPod cable going back and forward, and so I figured I could change that. I could go up against big companies. I think I could do it.
Yeah, there's nothing like naivete to help kickstart your journey, right? Like if you knew then what you knew now, you would probably be like, "There's no way I'm going to go up against these big guys," right?
Yeah.
But tell me about that, man, because like you're sitting there telling me in this audience, you studied Indonesian. You're telling your dad, "I might be a landscaper. I might do language. I might do graphic design." You're kind of all over the place, as many young people are, right? But what sparked this idea for you to create something, and then how did you go about actually making something physical? That is so killer. A product that became this multi-million-dollar company.
Yeah. Well, so from that medical record business, I had a little bit of money, and it was only a short runway because by the time we had Jaybird headphones in our hands, I was broke again.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah. So I had a little bit of money to hire contract some people who knew what they were doing, because I had no idea. And so I found a couple of guys who knew press relations and sales channel. Like they had connections with Target and Best Buy and places like that. And then I also found a guy who was a mechanical engineer who could design it. And one of these guys actually knew some engineers in Asia who could do the electronics for us. And you got to get creative when you don't have a lot of money. Yeah. And Tony Robbins says your greatest resource is your resourcefulness.
I love that. But you gotta say it like you gotta be resourceful and not have resources. Yeah, exactly. Perfect.
He talks so much. How does he do it with that voice?
He's been doing it for so long. Absolutely love the guy. He can talk all day.
Yeah. Yeah, so look, we made an arrangement with the engineers in Asia. They agreed to do it for free as long as they could make $1 a unit after it was sold. Now, I don't know how easy it is to do that. That's a pretty miracle deal. But those are the doors that open when you're chasing that calling on your life and you're following your heart. You're going to be taken directions that really shock and surprise you, and you'll be surprised at how many doors will open for you after narrow passes. Like, you still have the struggles, you still have the dark times, but when you go through it with some faith and some confidence, and you're following that purpose of your life, you get help beyond yourself, and things open up for sure.
Yeah. And that was not an overnight success. Obviously, looking at your bio, you were doing it for 10 years, which is a long time. And I kind of detected there were some peaks and valleys in there as well. Were there times during Jaybird that you were at a low point, or, were there difficulties?
So many. Yeah. So we were broke by the time we launched our first headphones. We get them on Amazon and our website. And then the feedback is from Target, for example, as well. Like we go and show Target, they're like, there's no controls on these headphones. And I say, well, yeah, because we want it to be ultra minimal, wireless, no buttons. Just if you want to control your music, just go to your phone. And they said, that ain't going to fly. Yeah, go back and retool your headphones and we'll have another chat. And that was the feedback everywhere. So now I'm already broke. Now I have to actually come up with a different product that has controls on it. Like, how do I do that? We actually had found, because we made them to be waterproof, there was a rubber gasket seal that ran along the spine of the product, and we had screws holding it together. It was like Darth Vader's hearing aids. They were black and they went around behind your ear. Nice. That's all we could do with the technology at the time. They're pretty funny looking. JB200, look up Jaybird JB200. And anyway, so we were able to put buttons on the circuit board, and through the rubber gasket, we could do these little buttons along the spine of it. So with very little cost, we were actually able to get it done.
Nice.
Another door opened up through a narrow pass, and Target ended up taking it. And that's all we had for a few years. And the Target business was so small as far as margin goes. We were just barely paying our bills and keeping the lights going for a good number of years there. And it was tough. Like we had just a few employees and we were just getting by. And eventually you've got to keep innovating.
Sure. So fast forward to the end, the great exit, right? Everybody hears a big number like $95 million, and I'm sure they assume that you got to pocket that. I know you got a cut out of that, right? You had to pay off lawyers and accountants and all that, whatever debt was. But I assume you got a pretty good payout walking out the door, correct? How many founders of the company were there?
Well, really, so we had some key employees and we gave some equity to them. But, the lion's share of it was my wife and I, yeah, for sure.
That's excellent. Now, I watched one video where you were like down on your luck, down to your last nickel, having a lunch with somebody, trying to sell them something. And then, like your credit card got declined at the meal. Like, was that that must have been before Jaybird? It wasn't after, obviously, right?
No, that was my very first. That was the Xerox Medical, the medical records business. Okay. My first effort to try to get that off the ground. Yeah.
Yeah, so you were, like you said, we were backtracking a little bit, but that was such a funny moment, watching it, painfully funny, but like you were trying to sell this customer who had finally agreed to meet with you after countless cold calls, just, running out of money, and you try to buy the guy lunch and your credit card got declined, which is like, oh, wow. Did he buy the product, or did he look at you and go, there's no way I'm going to sign up for this if you can't even pay for lunch?
Yeah, no, that deal didn't go through.
Well, everything, like you said, doors closed for a reason, and I'm sure you and it sounded like your wife was so unbelievably understanding. You called her probably crying, and she's like, "Where can I send some more money?" You were like, "Let's go, let's keep it going." So that's great, man. You have this unbelievable, infectious enthusiasm, I think, and positivity, which just comes through loud and clear.
Thanks, brother.
Awesome. And the other thing I really resonate with is you've really got a grasp on branding and marketing. Obviously, you told me that when you were young, you were thinking about it. But I mean, Jaybird was a killer name, great brand, great identity. Your new stuff as well, with the Unlisted name and app, as well as Jump. So I want to talk about those as well. But wrap us up a little bit. Coming out of the whole Jaybird, you said that you took some time off to do farming. What exactly did that entail? What type? Were you raising livestock or what?
Yeah, a bit of everything. So really, every small business is struggling and trying to get by, month to month, whether it's because you're a small business to start off with and you're a local community thing, or whether you're a high growth business and you're always reinvesting yourself back into the future. Most businesses really have a short wick as far as cash flow goes. And so that's why The world today is a little precarious for business owners right now. And so, the same thing for anyone in employment under those businesses. There's certain question marks out there. And so I wanted to really, get out of digits in a bank account, because I don't really trust the banking system that much. And I wanted to be intangible assets of intrinsic worth, to have that true peace of mind of having self-sufficiency, independence, and the ability to produce food and live and have power and water, whatever we wanted to do. And that's pretty exciting. And to get in that place and to work on that for a few years is really liberating. It's really exciting to be in that place.
Excellent. So tell us about Unlisted. Let's start there. You are this geek for, trading Bitcoin and Ethereum. Tell us about that. How did you get involved in that to begin with? And then you've got a partner who sounds like he was a math teacher, who's now
You've done your homework.
Yeah, man. This is like you gotta have the right people on board.
That's it. Well, when I came up with the idea for doing the Jaybird headphones in the first place, and the desk that I went back to see my wireless keyboard and mouse, I was trading stocks and options back then. That was my primary focus. And the headphone idea was just something fun on the side. So Jaybird took off, or really got consuming. And so I focused more on that. But once I finished Jaybird, and as I'm sitting in a tractor all day long, just decompressing from all the emails and the stress of running a business and funding it, and just relaxing finally after a decade. And I was trading Bitcoin in the evenings, or looking at Bitcoin and finding ways to make that something that other people could benefit from as well. Because I just have a big focus on living with purpose. Thomas Mann said we should be ashamed to die until we have achieved some great thing for mankind. And Jaybird was something like that. It's a sacred place each day where we put our little headphones in our ear and get away from everything and really rejuvenate ourselves. That was very exciting, to feel that purpose for people. And we reached we reached millions with these headphones, but only in a small way. What I have always really wanted to do is to help a smaller number of people and go deeper into their life and truly liberate them and really set them free financially if they're really interested in chasing something and showing some discipline and commitment to something. So 12 trades a year on Bitcoin is all I'm doing. And I've back tested this strategy all the way back to 2014, and it doubles money every 6 months. And in actual trading, that's also what it's done as well for the last year. And I figured that it's kind of selfish just to do it by myself. So it's the Unlisted project, because it's like a hush-hush underground thing, and we're going to let 1,000 people come in, and you can get on the app and you can see what we're trading, and you can do likewise as well. Yes. So if you start with $5,000, and we can't promise anything into the future. That's really important for me to say. I can tell you what the history is and the track record is, and if that were to play out, if you started with $5,000 today, you can pull out a calculator, double that every 6 months, and it's about $1 million in 4 years. So that's what my goal is, to try to get people there.
Not too shabby. So what is the deal with the $5,000? Is that just where you feel like people should not go below that? Or if I started with 1,000, if I'm doubling, I'm still going to be making money, but is that what was the rationale there to tell people you got to go all in at least $5,000 to start with?
Yeah, great question. Because it's only going to be 1,000 people, I want to make sure that I'm coming out of farming and out of retirement to help 1,000 people who truly want to change their life. And if you're going to start with 500 or 1,000, it's going to take you a lot longer to get there, right? And also, if you don't have a larger sum amount of money, you're not going to be as driven to do the trades, because it's, okay, I made $30 on that trade. It's just not enough to keep you excited and focused and committed. So even though it sounds easy, it's actually takes a lot of commitment and patience and consistency, and a lot of those attributes a lot of people haven't really developed in their life. And so I'm looking for people to really engage, to have some proper skin in the game, so that the 1,000 people that we're working with truly are going to change their life financially.
Right. And there's also a fee, correct? I believe it's $600 twice a year, like $1,200 a year. Is that right?
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
You're basically paying for you and your partner to provide the advice, the counsel about what to trade.
Yeah. So the app, for example, cost us over $100,000 to develop.
Wow.
We've put 2 years of work into developing the strategy. We put a lot of labor time in on an ongoing basis to support everyone. We've created a great suite of videos that show you how to trade, and then we're on chat all the time with you. So if you ever have a question, you can ask us a question. So there's a lot of labor time that goes into it as well.
So tell me about your conversation with people typically about Bitcoin and Ethereum and, just in general when people like, I was walking with my wife this morning saying, I'm getting ready to interview this guy, seems pretty interesting, Judd Armstrong. He's from Australia. He did Jaybird and now he's doing this Bitcoin. She's like, that sounds real shaky. Isn't that how 50 Cent lost all his money in Bitcoin? I'm like, I don't know how 50 Cent lost his money, but a lot of people don't really understand the Bitcoin world. Can you just break that down for the layperson and
Yeah.
talk about why it's a real thing? Like I looked online just today, one Bitcoin is worth 9,000 something US dollars today as we speak on June 25th, 2020. I'm like, damn, that's, pretty good. But it's like, it's not something that you have in your hand. It's not, liquid. So I think that's another thing. Like if people put this money in, how liquid is it? If they start to, you know, double that a couple years later, if they want to pull some out, is that even possible? Tell us about how this whole world works, trading,
Okay.
Not physical stocks with companies, but Bitcoin, digital, currencies.
Okay. So yeah, Bitcoin is a currency just like, living in Australia, I was always interested in the exchange rate between the Australian dollar and the US dollar. And it fluctuated. It was typically like US dollar was worth, the Australian dollar was worth like 68 cents to the US dollar. So it was worth less, right? But sometimes it would pump up and it would go up to like 80 or 90 cents worth against the US dollar. And that's what Bitcoin does. It's always fluctuating against the US dollar. It's just another currency. And people say it's a digital currency. Yeah, it is. But the thing is, the US dollar and every other currency on the planet mostly is a digital currency already, because if someone issues you credit, gives you a credit limit, like a credit card, all they've done is type digits into a bank account, and that's all it ever exists as is a number in your bank account online. That's all it is. You can convert it to cash, but just try to convert more than $10,000 to cash when you walk into the bank and see if they have it. They don't have that much cash. It's all digital nowadays. So Bitcoin is no different to any other currency in my mind. And it fluctuates quite a lot. So the volatility is amazing as far as the ability to trade, buy it low and then sell it high. And then also you can make money on the way down, which some people, it's a whole new concept to them. You can actually sell first and buy later, and you still make the difference. You still make the profit in between.
Okay.
So while Bitcoin goes up and then it loses 80% in a year, which it does, we actually make money on the way up, and then we actually compound that growth. We multiply that growth by the profits as we make money on the way down. So if you double on the way up and then it loses most of its value, you're actually almost doubling or quadrupling your money.
And you're not doing this with a ton of trades. You said 12 a year, which is what, one a month,
yeah,
basically?
that's right. That's right.
Yeah. So what about the question like, okay, I put in $5,000 and then 6 years later your kid needs a car or something and I want to cash out or I want to take some out. Can you do that? How does that
Easily.
work?
Yeah, I move money in and out all the time. It's so easy. It's just a bank transfer.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it goes from the digital Bitcoin back to the hard cash world of credit.
Yeah. That's right. We don't ever want to touch anyone's money. So we recommend that you go set up an account on an exchange that we recommend, and you transfer the money to them. You make the trades on that account, and then when you want it back, you just log into your account, and then they'll transfer it back to your bank. It's easy. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, that is very, very cool, and I hope that's taken off for you. I think you've got 130 something people now out of the 1,000, so there's spots available left for people to jump in. While we have a couple more minutes, Judd, I want to ask you about your other incredible venture called Jump, which is an app you're launching this summer to help people kind of get out of their subconscious mindsets, which we all have. We have this head trash, whether it's me being the imposter syndrome or whatever story you're telling in your head that I'm not good enough. or I
Yeah.
can't do this or whatever. Where did that come about? I mean, dude, you must have learned a lot on the tractor because you're like, I'm going to get into Bitcoin. I'm going to do psychology. You're a very multifaceted person.
Thanks, man. We all have our limiting beliefs, and believe me, I've had some limiting beliefs. I remember being in Australia on the basketball team in high school, which means nothing because here in America that's a big deal, but in
Yeah, you were
Australia,
a swimmer, which was probably more impressive in Australia.
yeah. Well, even then, if you were interested in a sport back 20, 30 years ago in Australia, you were on the team.
Nice. Yeah.
There's not as many people, so not as much competition. But I was in this basketball team, and I was afraid of everyone seeing me miss a shot. Right, so here we are, fast break layup. The captain of my team, quite a good player, was dribbling the ball, and I came up on the other lane, on the other side of the court, and I just wanted to support him making the shot. I didn't want to miss the shot and look silly, but he passed it to me, and I freaked out. I'm like, I don't want the ball, so I passed it back to him. And here was this tennis going on a basketball court. I'd pass it to him. He'd pass it to me. I'd pass it back.
Oh, that's great.
And I didn't want to look silly. But, of course, because I had that limiting belief of if I catch the ball, I will miss it and I will look silly. All I did was fulfill that belief I had for myself. And I actually looked pretty silly. There was some cute girls in the stadium. They were watching everything. So the point is that, well, first of all, life in the age 0 to 7, that's a subconscious programming time for us. And life teaches us a word, either yes or no. We might have grown up with this mentality that life's hard, keep your head down, play it safe because it'll beat you up. Or you might have grown up with a yes, where it's like, go out and make mistakes and see, explore yourself and discover who you are. And I think I came up with a yes, mostly out of that. And the thing is, we update that subconscious program every single day. So Brandon, you and I, when we got up this morning, we rewrote that subconscious program with the thoughts, the feelings, beliefs that we have for ourselves for today. And last night, as we drifted off to sleep, we went through that theta brainwave state, and we did the same thing there again. And so a year ago, I actually went to Dr. Joe Dispenza's advanced workshop, and he taught me all this. And I'm like, yeah, I knew all this, but not.
Did you say
I
Joe
couldn't
Dispenza?
articulate it. Yeah.
Oh, what a legend! That book is like a Bible now. The one I can't remember his last. It's drawing a blank now, but it's sitting on my bedstand as we speak.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's the master of this stuff, right?
Breaking the habit of being yourself.
That's awesome. So
And he talks about not being defined by the memory of who we've been, but by a vision of who we can be in the future. And he's great at explaining all that. And in that advanced workshop, we had to create a mind movie, a 2-minute animation of like all the affirmations you want for your life with an image and a soundtrack. And we made a movie, and I'm like, this is amazing. And it created Unlisted Project. In that movie I made for myself was the affirmations. I'm going to grow my money by 100x. I'm going to create a method that people will want to come and learn from me and see how it works. So mid to late last year, we actually finally, after a couple of years of developing and working on this stuff, it all clicked and it all came together. And here we are almost a year later, and we've got 130 customers working towards 1,000, and we're changing lives. It's cool.
That's excellent. Now, so when is the Jump app going to be released to the world?
Yeah, so the Jump app is my version of the Mind Movie app, and it's way, way better than what I had to use at Joe's workshop. It's coming in a month or two, so you can go to juddarmstrong.com or jumpapp.me, and you can sign up, and we'll let you know when it's out. But it's going to be pretty exciting to see how lives are changed through this app. A lot of people, when they see you chasing your dream or your ambition for life, they'll give you a hard time and they say, you can't do that. Why is that? It's because they can't see it for themselves. So they can't see it for you. So there's a lot of limiting beliefs in the world, in ourselves and in others. And this is where the Jump app comes in. You can really discover who you are, because we've got so much baggage and layers and just mud all over us. And the Jump app helps us to free ourselves from all that and truly explore and experience who we really are.
That's awesome. I can't wait to see that. I'm kind of a geek for that stuff too. After I read Joe Dispenza's book and watched some of his YouTube videos, I actually had an account on Video Blocks. I don't know if you've seen that before, but it's like stock video footage. And I sat there one night and I grabbed all these clips of like jet planes and various, amazing exotic locales. And I made a mind movie of that. So I'm watching that all the time going, yeah, it's going to happen. I'm going to be on a
Awesome.
plane riding to see Judd in Australia. Right. So why not? Why
Very
not? But
cool.
this has been so much fun, Judd. I appreciate it. As you mentioned, go check out Judd with two D's, Judd Armstrong.com. Also is the Unlisted is unlisted.io. Is that correct?
Yeah,
All right.
unlisted.io. Yeah, that's
I'll have
right.
all three of these in the Jump app. Locations listed in the show notes over at goforlaunch.io/show 89 with Judd Armstrong. Thank you so much, Judd. Any parting words of wisdom that you want to leave with the listeners of Go for Launch?
I'll leave you with the words of Alexander Dulles. He said, "A man who doubts himself is like a man who enlists in the ranks of his enemies and bears arms against himself."
Ooh, very powerful, sir. Well, thank you so much, Judd. I can't wait for this to be released, and I hope it provides a lot of value to people. And thank you so much for everything you're doing to bring value to the world.
Thanks, Brandon. That's awesome.